another panel talk show. I'm Major Sunil Shetty. Well, India is believed to be the biggest crypto market in the world, with the technology body NASSCOM estimating that country is home to about 15 million crypto investors. And the much awaited cryptocurrency regulation and official digital bill is soon going to be introduced in the winter session of the parliament. So where does this leave us? There are also news reports which is talking about the government going for a complete ban. To discuss this, we have with us Arjun Krishna Kalsi, Vice President of Growth Polygon, and Varun Singhi, a consulting partner of Master Mentors Advisors, and also is a co-author of Blockchain Consortium, a comprehensive book on cryptocurrency. And then we have Tarusha Mittal, co-founder of Oro Pocket. Welcome, gentlemen and ladies. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Warren, you've written a book on a blockchain consortium. Tell us about the book. What is it all about, and how relevant it is to the current ongoing discussion around cryptocurrency?
Absolutely. So this book is, as I said, when we talk about blockchain, there are two aspects: enterprise blockchain, and the other part is the cryptomania, right, where people get easily attached to and they associate themselves. So this book again, is primarily for organizations on how do they plan their participation in blockchain consortiums, right? Because every country, every company or organization at some point of time will actually want to enter blockchain race, right? So how do they plan it? Do they do it in a silo mode, or do they plan in in a consortium approach? And if they do plan in consortium approach, what are the steps they need to look at it to protect their own interest, right? Because consortium, again, it's a human psychology on how do you make sure that you get the best out of it in a collaborative affair. So these books again give you a flavor of the do and don'ts in a consortium fashioned approach.
And how relevant is it? I mean, it's a well-timed book, isn't it? When the talk around cryptocurrency was just kind of taking off.
Absolutely. Again, as you mentioned earlier, right? The Indian government, about to pass a bill on crypto regulations, right? And again, India is, thoroughly in favor of enterprise blockchain. They are actually very well poised to capture on the growth of, blockchain race. And again, we have good startups in India like Polygon, and few other enterprises. So with that, again, government really needs to find that middle ground, figure out, how do they protect investors' interest? And I think that's the core of everything, because when we reimagine financial markets changing, right, we really need to think of, how do you protect the consumer's interest in the larger good? Because as you said, NASSCOM predicts around 15 million people in the race today, right? So any legislation, again, should directly not focus on those 15 millions, because we are 1.3 billion people. Eventually, you will see this cryptomania or casino, as they call it, today's popular press, will trickle down to tier 2, tier 3 city. So we really need to be mindful, and regulators are taking a very holistic view of this, right? Again, we are not in any race to come out with a faster regulation. So there is time being taken, and and a very curated, thoughtful, with all the stakeholders involved. I assume and I believe that Indian government will take the middle ground to make sure that investors' interests are really protected.
Tarusha, coming to you, as a co-founder of the company Oro Pocket, how do you see this whole discussion or talk about as a startup? When there's so much uncertainty around cryptocurrency, will it happen? Will it not happen? Will there be a ban? Is it legal to do it? Because we keep getting these, from our viewers, constant queries about. Tell us about the cryptocurrency. Tell us about whether we can actually buy and trade and sell these currencies. How are you seeing as a founder of the company?
See, I'll start off my answer by saying that okay, cryptocurrency is by their inherent very nature, they can't really be banned, right? They're decentralized. So the most that you can do perhaps is criminalize it. And there are examples where countries have tried to do that, like Nigeria did that, and then now Nigeria has like one of the largest trading volumes. So if you're trying to just protect the user interest, and if that is what you have in mind as a policymaker, then it does not make sense to push this market into the gray area, right? Because that is what is going to happen. It's going to turn into, it's going to turn towards cash. It's going to turn towards P2P. And as a founder, we, as an industry, I think we are hopeful this time around that the government would come up with some sort of a positive regulation, because a lot has changed since, the first draft had come out. And even our finance minister, she made a statement recently that, they have kind of revised it, because that was not really relevant anymore. So it's a dynamic space, and we are very hopeful. Having said that, I do think that, the entrepreneurs who are building in Web3 right now from India, they are savvy enough. They have seen what happened in 2017. They've seen at least maybe 2 cycles in crypto, and they are savvy enough to have like a corporate structure which would ensure continuity of business in one way or the other. Because nobody is going to be, in the long game and not think and do all kind of risk assessment and risk mitigation that can be done. So that is primarily my take. Having said that, yeah, ultimately my baseline is I'm hopeful that, the government is going to be listening to the industry stakeholders, and we have been in talks. So I'm pretty hopeful.
Arjun, when you see the, this has been one of the things, right from the start, that firstly it's a gray area. Government also is kind of trying to learn as they go. There have been 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Again, the government, I think, finance minister came up and said we are again going to relook at it. Doesn't that create an uncertainty among entrepreneurs? While the users definitely, but then the uncertainty among entrepreneurs to whether we get into this, if we get into how deep do we get into it? Because if a startup has to scale itself, it is in the cryptocurrency. Whether they should do it, not do it.
So I think personally, in my opinion, they should definitely do it. And just like I think Tarusha brought up a very interesting point that cryptocurrencies, by their inherent nature, are global and cannot be banned. Just like you cannot ban the internet. So even in the most surveilled sort of internet in the world, which is in China, you couldn't ban it even there. So this is just how cryptocurrencies work, and I think the government has taken some positive steps towards regulation, because here it's important to have this sort of separation between cryptocurrency and blockchain as a technology, right? And both have their own advantages, right? And I think what people typically talk about in terms of law is that it's a very unstable asset. Investors can lose their money. But investors can lose their money in the stock market also, right? And how has the government solved that problem, right? So they basically always advise people to be careful. So whenever you see a mutual fund ad, you always have that mutual fund is subject to market risk, right? So the way to protect the public is not through bans. The way to protect the public is through education, by letting them know actually more about this, than sort of trying to push this into the gray area. And I think the governments will realize this. And what they will also realize is that it's better to regulate it and tax it than trying to push it into the gray area where it will continue to grow, but then then it may reach a point where you may not be even able to legislate it. So I think this is very important. And as far as technology itself is concerned, like as a country, our sort of risk averseness towards technology and our way of looking at technology has in some ways always held us back. Like right from the 70s, when banks wanted to become computerized, but then unions sort of stalled that process. We've lost the edge when it came to semiconductors. Like the first actual semiconductor plant by Intel was supposed to be set up in India, but then the government policies weren't there and it went elsewhere. And today we have zero chip manufacturing in a world which is practically run by chips. And even if you look at all the technologies which have come after that, whether it's machine learning, AI, like we are literally like we're not really market leaders in that. So no, this is a chance for us to sort of really become market leaders in one technology, right? So this is the best chance we have. And interestingly enough, in our country, like some of the biggest projects in the world have sort of their engineering staff based in India. And we already have a lot of talent in the space. So I think, the right policies and the right messaging could essentially change everything for us. And then, we could become the market leader in this particular technology. And which I think would be amazing for us, as a country and as an economy. So that's how I look at this.
So Varun, Arjun made an interesting point where it is there is risk when you look at the traditional market like the stock market, and the similar risks are there when you look at cryptocurrency, probably trading in cryptocurrency. But then the fluctuations in cryptocurrency is like way over. In a day, it could be 30% up and it could crash down to by 20%. So the fluctuations. So there is a need for some amount of some kind of regulation. In maybe the government said, okay, it may not become a legal tender, but when it comes to trading itself in cryptocurrency, there needs to be some amount of regulation. What do you think would be the best way going forward if you have to regulate this industry?
Well, yeah, I think Arjun has really brought a fantastic point, right? That analogy between traditional stock market and the crypto, right? I do, believe that, losses are everywhere, right? But if you look at the traditional market today, there are regulations which mandates the company to give adequate level of, information disclosure, right? Material information. But when you look at the crypto side today, DeFi, I think, this information asymmetry is actually, it's a bit skewed, right? The information might be, like disclosure more towards the, like professional investors or the promoters or the developers. But when it comes to the retail investors, I think, the information disclosure is not adequate. And again, we are not expecting the retail investors in, DeFi or, crypto part to be very tech savvy so that, they understand every risk involved. So I think, what government is trying to understand, how do they make sure that the information disclosure is adequate so that, the investors make their own informed decision, right? Because end of the day, government cannot take, any, liabilities of the losses incurred, but what they make sure is, how do you make sure the information disclosure is adequate so that, average investor have its own point of view and invest, right? And coming to the point of the regulation part, right? And this is what is it's a complex thing because by nature of the definition of decentralized finance, there are no intermediaries, right? You are actually talking of removal of intermediaries from the value chain, right? That's the definition of decentralized finance. But when you talk about regulations, right? If you want to put regulations, that means you are actually intending to introduce a intermediary, right? To regulate the process. So there is where you have this complex tug of war between regulations and DeFi. So I think ultimately it will be sort of a middle ground where you might be mandating the protocols to do the KYC, right? Because right now, if you look at there is very minimal provision for KYC or any AML or all this financing terrorism thing. So I think government will look in that aspect. How do they make sure that at least the anonymity part is taken care. So in case anything goes wrong, there is some sort of traceability again, and which again goes against the definition of decentralized finance. But this would be some sort of middle ground, where stakeholders and regulators needs to work together to find that particular sweet spot where there's a win-win situation. And as Arjun rightly mentioned, right, we are very sweetly poised. This is the time we can actually leapfrog our entire ecosystem. And if you see the number of unicorns popping up in India right now, right, so we can continue the momentum and make India the world startup hub. And by having a very progressive kind of law which does not stifle innovation, but makes it more sustainable.
Arjun, okay, we need to ensure that the government or the government needs to ensure that there is no tight regulations. But don't you think there should be some amount of let me take a step back and talk about all the ads that you see on television, the newspapers. I mean, these are like, and some of the places I believe there also been huge claims of making instant jackpots overnight in a cryptocurrency. Now, kind of these needs to be regulated. Do you think something should happen on that front where like what happens in the stock market, you can't just go and list yourself in the stock market. You have to go through some amount of due diligence before you can come into the market. Similarly, endorsement of products also are there has to be some amount of regulation around or checks and balance around when it comes to cryptocurrency. Do you think there is need of that?
I definitely feel that everybody in the cryptocurrency space is pro regulation, because it will help the space become more mainstream. And like I said, like education is the key. So whenever, for example, you see these ads of cryptocurrency, it's important that you end the ad with the same adage, like if you've seen, like that it's subject to market risk and that there is significant risk there. In terms of volatility, I would say that these are early days for crypto, so that's why you're seeing the volatility. I think it's very analogous to when the Indian stock market started in the 1990s. So in 1991, post-liberalization, when the Indian stock market started, and if you've seen if you've seen one of these popular TV series revolving around Harshad Mehta and the times of there was volatility like you can't believe, right, on a daily basis. So whenever a new sort of technology or something new starts, there is bound to be significant volatility. And of course, like, the government must have some sort of, let's say, program where, just like how every scheme, which every mutual fund scheme, any stock market related scheme, any money market instrument has to tell its consumers about the risks. Similarly, like with cryptocurrency, there has to be like this kind of same messaging, so that people don't fall prey to, get rich quick schemes. I would dare say that there are equal get rich quick schemes in the stock market as well, where, you can buy the stock and become, like, retire in 2 years. So there's, I think, equal amount of misinformation and information on the sites. I think what makes blockchain very interesting is that, like you said, like, you can't just go public. There is a proper process, and here is when the discussion about the third party comes, right? Who checks this process? Like, where does the buck stop? And there are bodies like SEBI, etc. Um, Even in the cryptocurrency space, whenever you launch your own cryptocurrency, etc., you have to do it via a smart contract, right? And the smart contract is open for everybody to see, right? So anybody can audit the smart contract. Now, not everybody is technical, right? So people will not look through computer code and try and figure it out. However, like, independent researchers all across the world can view your code. So you're open, or you're sort of, I would dare say that there is more transparency in this system versus possibly a company going public, where the regulators essentially take the call on whether this is legitimate or not. And then that by itself creates a single point of failure where things can go either, very well or really, really badly. And to understand where things can go badly is you need to look at countries where the stock markets have failed, right? In spite of there being regulators, right? So look at countries like Venezuela, or look at countries like where, where there's hyperinflation, right? So even having a regulator is no guarantee that things will go well. And that's why I feel blockchain is interesting, because everything is public from day one. Anybody can go and read about it. Anybody, like, every cryptocurrency has a white paper. So you can take like an informed decision, your investment. Now, does it need to be better communicated? Does it need to be easier for people to understand? Of course. And I do hope that in times to come, like, this will, this kind of regulation will enforce upon protocols to be more transparent and to have even more documentation out there for people to really understand, why, how it works, and why it is valuable. And this way you can, through education, and again, not through over regulation, but through education, basically solve many of these problems.
Tarusha, and as a founder, what would you like to see?
So, Arjun kind of really covered it. And, I keep going back to what Andreas Antonopoulos had said, that people keep talking about the volatility, but they don't understand that this technology is very nascent. And there will be volatility. It's bound to be volatile because it's so new and so dynamic. You need to understand the technology behind it and then understand why it's important, because it kind of makes it's transparent from the very start, right? There is no opaqueness. There is no single point of failure. All of those make it very relevant in this, the way the socio and geopolitical scenarios that are kind of playing all around the world. And as a founder, I truly do believe that, yes, the ads need to be like, there needs to be a certain standard for it, or, you need to have like a disclaimer, like mutual funds also have a disclaimer, right? And that is there. And then, all of these, see, I keep saying this again and again, that I think like all the scams that have happened till date, or any kind of, issues that have happened in the financial ecosystem that is there, is been in the traditional financial system that already exists, right? With all the regulation, you're still not able to stop all of those huge scams from happening. So what kind of makes you think that, okay, something that has been there from time immemorial, you're not able to stop it, but okay, this is, you kind of making an example out of crypto. There'll always be bad elements, no matter what industry, you kind of touch upon. But then, you have to just remember that there are more of us than them. There are more of people who are trying to really resolve, a problem for a nameless, faceless person they don't even know, actually solve a real problem for them. Then, the bad elements will come in, but there is a way to sort of deal with it and take it with a pinch of salt, that okay, there will be scamsters. You need to give, so policymakers need to stop coddling the end user. They need to take on some responsibility on their own as well. And that is what I think blockchain and crypto does. It kind of gives you the responsibility. Do what you want with your money, right? Your banks are not going to tell you, okay, you can't take out a certain amount after a point. Like banks have, I think, too much power. They exercise too much power on the money that we are actually giving them. So that needs to be dismantled. So essentially with blockchain, the end user does have more responsibility. The onus is more on them. And the policymakers should understand that there is no point in coddling. Obviously, you caution and you put in the warnings, but if users are allowed to trade in stocks and in any all of these different asset classes, why not crypto? Right? It's just another asset class that you're putting your money in, and these are adults that are actually putting in their money. Where they put in their money is their prerogative, right? Like with due caution, I think there should be no problem. Again, I would like to go back to what the finance minister had said. I think recently that the ads would be regulated perhaps by the ASCI, which is absolutely fine. Like any other industry body, I think any other industry, we'd be happy to accept that. To have like some disclaimers or to have certain points to keep in mind. And education becomes key. Leave the decision to the user is my take. Like you educate them and then they decide what do they want to do with their money. I don't think anybody should police the end user into what is right for them, what is wrong. Stop coddling the end user. I think these are adults and they can take their own decisions.
Well, definitely, yes. I understand that when people are investing money into advanced technology built on advanced technology like crypto, they are doing some kind of research. There might be a part of people who are taking gamble, but then most of them would be who understand the technology. So Arjun, uh, given the talent that we have, tech talent that India has, and the opportunity that is evolving in the blockchain and cryptocurrency, where do you see if the government was to follow the line of blockchain enthusiasts or the crypto enthusiasts and say, great, we're not going to regulate a lot, but then we're going to have some checks and balances, and India is an open market as far as cryptocurrency is concerned. Where do you see India going? I mean, what all can happen if you were to just kind of wear a thinking hat and say what can happen if the ideal conditions were given to Indian market?
I think if we got considering the talent in the country already, if the government took such a stance as you're describing it, that they sort of put in the right policies and structures, I think India can become the global leader in blockchain in possibly the next 12 to 14 months. It won't take us 5 years. The next 12 to 14 months,
Wow.
we will be market leaders in this space. And so this is kind of, again, what's the thing which really hits close to my heart, that time and time again we've sort of turned our back on technology and then always been followers. Like, it's time we became leaders, right? And if you look at even regulations, just generally, most of the regulations around let's say internet and digital products are based on the regulations in the US, right? And that has sort of started this trend where the US regulates something first, and then everybody sort of either modifies or copies that regulation. And what that has meant is that everybody always has been a follower. So we have to be leaders here, and when you want to be a leader, then there is inherent risk, and that is something which we have to accept, right? You cannot, just like how Tarusha was saying, you cannot create any kind of structure in the world which sort of protects everybody. And even in the normal financial markets, you're not able to do that. Now, when it comes to blockchain as a technology and project builders, so the couple of things which are very interesting about Web3, like I said, the code is there for everybody to see, right? So you don't need to reverse engineer things. You can literally look at the code. So you can look at popular protocols and you can learn from them, right? So you can look at $1 billion protocol and you can look at the code and you can learn from what that protocol is doing. Like at Polygon, we built a $20 billion company. You can go on the blockchain right now and look at all of our smart contracts and learn how we built it. And I think this is something so interesting that for a young builder who's trying to figure out how to create, let's say, the next $1 billion company, like, he has all of this code already available to them, right? And they can study this. They can, in fact, use similar kinds of code. Like, there is no intellectual property kind of problem in the space. It's open source technology. So the time to market for somebody to build something amazing is extremely low. This is kind of why in blockchain, you tend to see so many more unicorns. Of course, there's more capital available right now, but there's also all the tools and the code you need to build that amazing protocol also exists. So you're not reinventing the wheel all the time. So the pace of innovation tends to be extremely fast. And what we've seen in this country is that, with Indian engineers and the talent we have in this country, because all of this is available. And in India, for example, now you have ubiquitous internet access. Like even in the smallest of towns, you have internet access. People are accessing online resources to study, and COVID has accelerated that, right? So now you have a whole generation of school students who look to the internet and look to sort of online tools to educate themselves. And because we have this in our country, like what we are seeing is that some of the best talent in the Web3 space actually comes from tier 2, tier 3 colleges. It's not from tier 1 colleges at all, right? Because in tier 1 colleges, everybody seems to be gravitating towards consulting, or possibly some different kind of stream. But some of the best talent we've hired has come from tier 2, tier 3 colleges. Like you won't believe, like there's such big blockchain sort of clubs in some of these colleges, and some very, very accomplished engineers. So that's why, like, knowing that this kind of talent exists at such a deep level in our country, like I'm very bullish on this. And if the government gives us a chance, gives the industry in this country a chance, within the next 12 to 14 months we will change everything.
That's a big statement. In 14 months we could be the global leaders. Well, adding to what NASCOM has said, we've got about 10 million crypto users. That makes a big statement. Finally, to you, Arun, one of the reasons why probably government, being a security man myself as an army officer, we understand what we don't understand. That's the problem, right? And one of the things around cryptocurrency, around blockchain technology and crypto, based on that, is the fact that who owns it, where it is based. There is it's complete opaque. Nobody understands where it is, and that brings in the money laundering part of it. And given India's security, the government has genuine concerns. Don't you think so?
I think absolutely. And what Arjun mentioned, right? Like I'm very bullish on, the growth of blockchain in India. And I think India also realizes, this is an opportunity for them to, really capitalize, right? But given the consideration, I think they're pretty genuine, considering the size of our country, our demographics, and the level of, education we have in terms of, this tech savvy thing, right? And because right now we see, there are two sort of people. One is, as Arjun mentioned, right, all this digital native people who are quite advanced, right? I mean, if you look at tier 2, tier 3 city, people are really talented. I mean, they understand what they are dealing with. And you have this, transition generation, which are actually, very traditionally focused, but trying to explore, crypto, blockchain, and trying to make sense out of it, right? So with that said, I think there will be regulation, and what I heard from few of the people I know who work closely with the regulators, that there might be an innovative approach of of like coming out with a wallet, like an India wallet they call it, which would be the gateway for starting your crypto journey, right? So you start with the India wallet, which is completely like KYC, AMLA check, whatever it is, and that particular thing is integrated with other service providers like other crypto exchanges, centralized, decentralized, or other DeFi platforms, right? So that is one way the regulators are looking at. Again, behind the scenes, a lot of innovative stuff is happening in terms of like there will no banking pen, of course, that will cripple the innovation, and we can actually go back a few years, right? Because again, India, as it with the youngest population in the world, right, in that bracket, I think we really need to, take that step. And I think that's why you see, and again, media plays a role here as well in terms of, while the work is happening, there might be few elements which might, misinterpret the statement or whatever is there in the, written part right now. So I would say that, it's a double-edged sword, right? And you really need to, take very step cautiously, because the problems are genuine, right? Money laundering, terrorism, and because we have been victim of this in the past. So really want to make sure that when technology progresses, the entire macro structure, the reimagining of financial markets also takes place, properly. Because at one point of time, I believe that there will be convergence, right? Decentralized finance, traditional finance will definitely merge, but that can only happen as fast as regulators want to do it, right? So we really need to work towards that, and make sure that everything is in order. Of course, it will take time. We might not protect everyone, but what we can do is give them tools to protect themselves, right? You as I think Tarusha rightly mentioned, right? When you remove intermediaries, the onus lies on the user, right? He needs to ramp up himself to be part of this crypto economy and not rely on, because if you look in today's traditional finance, the intermediaries exist to mitigate the risk, right? The people who are actually investing in traditional finance, the risk is in you have the gatekeepers who absorb the risk, and you know that there is some recourse mechanism available in case something goes wrong, right? But that thing, today doesn't exist in a foolproof way in a DeFi world, right? In a blockchain cryptocurrency world, right? So we will see a convergence, but only as soon as regulators want it to be.
Thank you. So thank you, Tarusha. Thank you, Arjun. Thank you, Varun. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hosting you on other shows as as the news and development around cryptocurrency builds up. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us.